This week, David, what have we got?
We have the current version of the Ford dual cab ute Raptor
X.
Alan, this model is about to be replaced soon.
It is, very soon.
But it's good to look at it because the new models really focus a lot on comfort and features and connectivity. This one is really about roughness, real toughness.
Butchness. And in fact, the new model does look quite butch. Here's a picture of it here. I think it actually looks quite good and more in line with the American Ford's version of what these tough trucks look like. So they've made it look like they're bigger trucks.
So it is very much that tough image. They say, Alan, it's made for brutal environments.
Well, this looks to me like it is made for a brutal environment. And in fact, it looks like a brute. And it all starts at the front with this grille, David.
The interesting thing is on this Raptor model, the grille protrudes into the bonnet a little as opposed to the others, and so gives it this more breastplate look with the very strong Ford.
The fancy stripes, David, they're called
OTT, which is over the top, which I think is quite appropriate.
because it
is
actually
over the
goes
top.
over the top.
And even appears on the back of the tailgate, as though it continued all the way on.
But the main feature at the front are these LED lights. In fact, all of the lighting at the front is LED. Down below there's a metal sort of kick plate to stop the rocks from damaging, and a couple of recovery hooks. Now they can take, I think it's around 4,000 kilos.
Ah, but the important thing is, Alan, they're red. That's one of the features on this car, that the recovery hooks are painted red.
The door automatically unlocks when you approach the car, which I quite like, and you'll notice along the bottom there's some kind of, sort of, I don't know, patterned hard metal side steps.
You know what? I like how it's got this indent and let the water out.
To let the water and the mud out.
Yeah.
And just to make sure that you know that you've paid a little bit extra, there's a Ford Performance badge.
Alan, I just contest the word a little bit more. We'll come to that in price.
Right, well, unfortunately the word performance doesn't relate to the actual term performance, because this is 150 kilowatts.
Yeah, 157 and 500 Newton meters from a 2-litre turbocharged diesel.
Bi-turbo. There's no cover over this. I would think a little retractable cover wouldn't have killed them.
It's actually quite basic compared to the FX4 Max. I'm struggling with their nomenclature here.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the FX4 Max isn't the top model. This one is, the Ranger Raptor X. The point about this, David, is
the height. You remember we talked about these utes being sort of chest high. We're almost, as you say,
and we're almost 6 foot-ish. The tailgate, that locks with the central locking. And this is a very, very long way off the ground. I mean, it's almost hip height. And I'm, like a shade under 6 foot. Wow, that's
It makes access to whatever you put in there difficult.
Well, it depends on what you're putting in. I mean, if you're putting in something where you don't want to bend over, it's great, but you've still got to bend over this and then push it along this patterned surface. There are some tie downs inside, so you can tie your load down inside the tray instead of it being on the outside. And there is a power point as well.
Now, Alan, just before I get in the back, if you're putting a baby seat in, you fold down and get to the anchor point.
And then you've got to fold the seat back.
Yes, and then you've got to try and tighten the strap on the top of the baby seat.
Well, I mean, maybe they just figure that tradies are just going to have their mates in and not baby seats. That's there as an afterthought.
Oh, but gee, the family is, trendy family and that. Now, getting in, well, I didn't step on the rail. I should have. Not too bad, actually.
That's actually not too bad.
I'm sitting a bit bolt upright.
Try putting the rear headrest up. See if that makes it any better.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but it's still a little bit of the the old school desk.
And you're going to want to remember to put that down again before you drive.
Yeah.
There's a map pocket behind the front seat, which is fairly deeply sculptured to give you a little bit more knee room. Seems to be plenty of foot room as well.
Not too bad, yeah. Room under the front there, which is good.
And then down below we've got a couple of outlets. There's a household style outlet and a 12-volt cigarette lighter style outlet. But there's no vents back here, David.
No. Okay, no, I really do like being able to climb up into a ute. Adds to that image of being out on the farm, doesn't it?
It does a bit. Well, I think I could see you in a straw hat with a bit of hay out your side. And just to let you know you're in a Raptor, it comes up on the 8-inch screen. David, I think that's a little bit small, a little bit mean.
They call it rough done smart, the look of this.
I think it's rough done rough.
Now,
well, the thing
it's
is this,
old, I think. Rough done old.
This is old, David. This is very old. However, I do like it better than I like Hilux. This is clearly divided into zones, though this needs to be bigger, and on the new one it probably will be. This is Sync 3, and as you can see, it has Apple CarPlay by lead. Down on the center console, there's some off-roading controls and the engine on-off, and the 2 high, 4 high and 4 low controls, and a mystery button which we think is something to do with towing. The gear lever, David, is for the 10-speed automatic transmission.
But in the less sophisticated ranges, there are less sophisticated gearboxes. You can get a 6-speed manual, as you would expect, and also a 6-speed automatic.
And to make matters a little bit interesting, you can see here I've got my Navman plugged into the overhead USB. This is laid out reasonably well, though we did have a little hard time finding the automatic light button. That is so tiny, that's, you know, like a millimetre tall. There's the controls here for the mirrors. That 4.2-inch screen, I think, is way too small, and that's where all of your details show up when you're driving. The lane control button is here on the end of the stalk, and then the steering wheel is laid out rather similar to Ford's passenger type vehicles. This has that multi-link suspension in the back, which gives us, and this is not exactly a brilliantly kept road. There's imperfections all over the place, and I think this ride is more than acceptable. Going over that speed bump, that was really smooth. Now, David, comparing this to some of the other all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive cars that we've had, especially in this ute line, we've had the Amarok, the Nissan one, the Navara, and Toyota's Hilux, which of course is the best seller, usually in the class. Now, I don't know about you, but this to me feels much more comfortable, although it's about the same age.
I've always felt the Ranger has for a number of years been more comfortable, particularly than, say, the Hilux.
The 2-litre bi-turbo does have quite decent pickup. I mean, you're not going to break any land speed records anytime soon, but it's not made for that kind of thing. It's made to haul big, heavy loads with the 500 Newton meters. That's what it's made for. One of the reasons David was having trouble with grip in the 4XM XL four-wheel drive was that
omnipotent, omnipresent, I don't know.
Was that these utes are very, very light in the back end with no load on. So there's nothing over the rear wheels. And with the demise of Ford and Holden's car-based utes, this really is their only choice, and probably one of the main reasons that either Ranger or Hilux is the top seller. Now that we're at 100, the ride I think is really, really good. It's extremely comfortable, a little bit less floaty than some of the other cars in the class. Also, it's got the lane control. Now, it doesn't use braking like Hilux does. At speed, that is downright frightening. This will steer you with attitude, let me say, in between the lanes, though it's not actually lane centering. Well, I think that this would be very popular with people that want to tow. There is only a 2,500 towing limit, which I think is a little bit disappointing. That's a little bit behind.
Just 3.5.
So to wrap up, Raptor X sits at the top of the tree, is great off-road, pretty good on-road, looks brilliant, interior is a little bit old-fashioned, and the engine and transmission were certainly well up to par. We actually look forward to the new model. If this one is this good, the new model we think will be brilliant.
All I'm missing is my straw hat and a bit of hay out the side of my mouth, but that is it. That is all this week for Ranger Raptor X.
I was thinking of Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Or the
Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. As always, it's time to leave a comment.
Or press like.
Got it round the wrong way. But over there to subscribe.